Well, guys, we are currently living in the dumbest timeline ever imaginable. Yesterday, as promised, Donald Trump implemented his across-the-board so-called reciprocal tariffs, and the markets have been falling off a cliff ever since. At the time of recording, the Dow Jones is already down 4%, which is just a huge swing in one single day. And this is all because Donald Trump has built a conspiracy bubble for himself and the MAGA movement to live in, and now he's using the lies that created that bubble to enact economic policy that is going to be devastating for the American people. And I'm going to try to put a little finer point on just how insane these so-called tariffs are, because these aren't tariffs like you and I think about tariffs. Instead, the Trump administration came up with some crazy formula to enact these so-called reciprocal tariffs that are just so high and so unreasonable that it is going to be devastating for our economy. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this Trump administration tried to calculate these so-called reciprocal tariffs, and they are using Vietnam as an example here. So let's go ahead and take a look, and then we will discuss, and if you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Vietnam exports $136.6 billion in goods to the U.S. The U.S. exports $13.1 billion in goods to Vietnam. Now, how did they get to the 90%, which they cut in half to 46%? What they did is they subtracted the Vietnamese goods bought by the U.S., $136.6 billion, total U.S. goods bought by Vietnam, and ended up with $123.5 billion. Now, the way they actually got to the 90% number is they did 123.5 divided by 136.6, which equals 0.90 or 90%.
And then half of that.
And then because of the benevolence of President Trump, as he kind of laid it out, then they cut that in half.
Okay, guys, when you think of reciprocal tariffs, you might be thinking that, hey, these other countries, they have implemented tariffs against the United States. So Donald Trump, he's just going to come in, he's going to level out the playing field, and he's just going to reciprocate whatever tariff that they have imposed on us. But no. That is not what is going on here. Instead, Donald Trump thinks that a trade deficit can be split up and then divided and then reworked to implement these huge tariffs that make absolutely no sense. Let's just remember what a trade deficit is, guys. We are an economic powerhouse here in the United States, which means we often buy more goods from a country than they buy from us. And so if we buy $100 billion of goods and the other country only buys $50 billion of goods, that means there is a $50 billion trade deficit. Everything makes sense. But because Donald Trump is such an idiot and he thinks that this is a way that the United States is somehow subsidizing these countries, he is trying to claw that money back by imposing these so-called reciprocal tariffs. It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it is more insane than anybody could have ever thought. I mean, this is just beyond stupidity. It makes zero sense at all. And now we've got the Trump administration coming out and trying to, say that these are going to be good for the American people and, prices are going to go down. And so I wanted to show you how the Trump administration is working up all of these different stories to try to make the American people feel better about getting fucked by Donald Trump's tariffs. I mean, that is really what is going on here. Here's Caroline Leavitt talking about how we just need to trust Daddy Trump, okay?
What is the White House reaction to, as we just had those numbers up, global markets tumbling this morning and futures down sharply?
To anyone on Wall Street this morning, I would say trust in President Trump. This is a president who is doubling down on his proven economic formula from his first term. We saw wages increase. We saw inflation come down. We had a Trump energy boom. We had the largest tax cuts in history. And that's exactly what the president intends to do following his historic announcement yesterday for reciprocal tariffs. It's the golden age rule for the golden age of America. And the United States of America is no longer going to be cheated by foreign nations around the world. And as the president declared yesterday, this is indeed a national emergency. We have a $1.2 trillion trade deficit and counting. We've had 90,000 factories close in the last couple of decades. Since 1997, Americans have been put out of 5 million manufacturing jobs.
Okay, I forgot this point as well, because normally presidents can't just unilaterally implement these across-the-board tariffs. But what Donald Trump has done has declared a national emergency to give himself the power to do this. And then Congress handed over their power to actually be a check on these tariffs. So they gave their power away. So now they can't even do anything about these tariffs. And as we have seen, Donald Trump is living in a fantasy land and implementing huge, huge tariffs that are going to hurt the American people. And they continue to live in the past saying, well, this was his economic agenda in the first term and it's going to work again this time. What they are doing here in the second term is nowhere close to what Donald Trump did in his first term. And let's just remember, in his first term, the tariffs backfired so miserably that he had to do a $28 or $29 billion bailout to the farmers. So even in his first term, the whole tariff thing didn't work like they said it was going to work. So now they're just saying, oh, you need to trust Trump. But as we can see, these are going to be devastating for the average American family. And then we've got Howard Lutnick saying that, yeah, I don't think Trump is going to back off these tariffs.
So the European Union and China, they have already vowed to retaliate. At what point would the administration consider pulling back on tariffs, especially on those 10% across the board tariffs? Where is the room for negotiation?
I don't think there's any chance that President Trump's going to back off his tariffs. This is the reordering of global trade, right? That's what's going to happen. But the world should stop exploiting the United States of America. Let our farmers sell their products. Let our ranchers sell their products. They won't take lobster in Europe or the UK. I mean, why won't they take American lobster?
Now they do. They didn't for a while, but now they do.
But they don't, because okay. Downing Street said they're going to start with, they changed their trade policy, they're going to start having lobster dinners in Downing Street.
All right.
So well, that's what they told me. So the point is, let's let American workers succeed and prosper.
Ha ha ha. Do they think this is a joke? And they always point to these one-offs, these red herring examples, that even if they were true, these across-the-board tariffs would not make any sense at all. And how many times did we hear that the Trump administration is actually using these tariffs as some sort of negotiating tactic? But here we have Howard Lutnick saying, nah, he's not going to back these things off. Everybody else is taking advantage of America. We can't take them off. We got to level the playing field, guys. But that is not what is going on here. These people cannot provide any evidence to say that all of these countries are ripping us off. It is America that it is the predominant economic powerhouse in the world, and we often have benefit and glean benefit from all of our trading relationships that we have established over decades. But this Trump administration is hallucinating. They are living in a delusion, and they're trying to sell it to the American people that, the American people are the victim. America and the United States is the victim. Everybody's ripping us off. So this is what we have to do. They are lying to you. What they are doing here is idiotic. It's going to hurt the American family. It's going to hurt the American business. It's going to hurt the American consumer. And it's only the Trump administration that we have to blame for this shit. And then you have people like, what's her name? Rollins, the agriculture secretary, coming out and saying, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to be negotiating. Huh?
So these additional reciprocal tariffs on China, on the European Union, on Japan, they're not taking effect until April 9th. Are you saying that you expect that you will see negotiations around this ahead of that taking effect? And perhaps we'll see a change in these tariffs?
I think that's right. I mean, this is always, listen, the president is the ultimate deal maker. He has been, cutting deals and making deals, first for his companies, the Trump companies, and now for the American people. There is no one better. I saw it in the first White House as his domestic policy chief for 3 years, and then now as the Secretary of Agriculture in the cabinet. His ability to make and cut deals and negotiate is unlike anything I think any of us have ever seen that have been working it for a long time in policy. And now how he will apply that for the benefit of the American people, the American economy, and for our farmers and ranchers. And I do believe April 9th and beyond we'll continue to see these other countries opening up their markets, allowing more of our product in, our agriculture product, and again, for our farmers and ranchers, a new age of prosperity.
Well,
this is a consequence of putting a whole bunch of Trump sycophants in the cabinet. This is why we didn't see this in the first term. This is what people were expecting in Trump's first term. It didn't end up getting this bad because there were actually people with principles and understanding of economics that could push back against Donald Trump. But none of those people exist in Trump's second term. And none of these people are willing to stand up and say, hey, dude, these are a terrible, terrible idea. And instead, we get these different messages. You got Lutnick saying, oh, yeah, we're not pulling back on these. And then you got Rollins here saying, oh, yeah, we're going to negotiate. It's going to be so good. We're going to see markets open up all over the world. That is not how this is going to work. And in fact, countries are already starting to rework their trade partnerships to exclude America. So this is going to hurt America in more ways than one, and it's only the Trump administration that we have to blame for this, okay? And then here we got Caroline Leavitt again saying, well, Trump is focused on lowering costs.
In the most immediate, I mean, these farmers, as Tom Tillis says, farmers are one crop away from bankruptcy. That farmer doesn't have time to wait for tariffs to work their way into the system, for the benefit of it to work its way into the system at all. This is going to mean higher prices for Americans. In the most immediate, that's why I asked the question, how much pain on a temporary basis is okay? What's the standard that the president is looking at in terms of how much pain Americans can feel on a temporary basis that he's okay with?
Again, the president is focused every single day on lowering the cost of living in this country while simultaneously implementing these very effective tariffs.
These two statements don't make sense together. Donald Trump is not lowering prices for everyday Americans. And these tariffs, these across-the-board tariffs that he just implemented, are going to do the exact opposite. They are trying to pull the wool over your eyes. But let's just remember what happened here. Donald Trump imposed a national emergency so he could have the unilateral authority to implement these insane tariffs. He then used the trade deficit and split it up and divided it to try to get this figure that is astronomically high as these so-called reciprocal tariffs. These are not real tariffs. This is Donald Trump punishing American markets. And it's going to make prices go up for goods all across the country. And then we had a Congress that gave away their power. So even if they wanted to step up and say, hey, Donnie boy, this is not a good idea, we're going to go ahead and reverse these, they can't even do that. So this is a self-inflicted wound from the Trump administration, because he has some weird infatuation with tariffs. He thinks that trade deficits are somehow us subsidizing other countries, which is just not the correct way to read that. And then again, you've got Trump, who has been thinking about tariffs since the 1980s, and he finally has all the sycophants in place where he can try to push forward with this very, very, very terrible idea. That is what is going on here. Donald Trump lives in this conspiracy bubble. He now gets to implement these tariffs. He's going to raise prices for the everyday consumer, the average American. He's going to put businesses out of business. He's going to make life harder for our farmers. And again, I will say, and the only person we have to blame for this is a delusional Donald Trump. That's it. Every economist looked at this and said, this is going to be a disaster. Even if it has the intended effects of bringing some jobs back to America, you are now doing so much damage on the global stage with all of our different trade relationships that it is going to be devastating for our economy. So that is where we're at, folks. We have a delusional president who is losing his mind, and he's making life harder for the American people, all while trying to sell you a story that, oh, he is indeed focused on lowering prices, and we're gonna make America great again. I mean, it's buffoonish. It is foolish. These people need to be voted out of office at the earliest time we can. I mean, these people got to go. They are insane. So I will leave it there now. I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We've got to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against this right-wing media ecosystem that allows these MAGA brain rot ideas to ferment day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see these reciprocal tariff announcements that Donald Trump did at the White House lawn, do watch that video on the screen now. It is quite a doozy. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.